Hey there, it's Brandon Knopf from Seattle Organic SEO giving you another little video about some particular topic that relates to websites and hopefully get more visibility out there on the search engines. Tonight, we're actually going to explore an interesting question that I find a lot of business owners struggle with. And that is the question between WordPress and other content management systems or CMS platforms. Now, there are a lot of businesses out there that use very simple content management systems like Wix or Squarespace. And it is an easy solution for a lot of small businesses and very cheap. They don't realize sometimes, however, that they pay possibly even more than they pay for a host and the free version of WordPress, which is basically free, and just paying for the domain. So frankly, people could actually save money if they were comfortable just going straight with WordPress. But of course, there's not a lot of understanding straight out of the box, and a lot of times people just don't know that. But a past client of mine tonight asked the question, "Hey Brandon, what do you think of this WordPress theme?" So tonight I thought I would explore a little bit about the question that he asked. And on top of that, obviously I'm respecting his privacy, not identifying who he is. But he is a photographer, and we will explore some topics around WordPress and photography tonight. But I did want to just highlight real quickly, as you can see with this image that I have opened. And I didn't want to skip right to this, but since this whole screen is being recorded right now, you can see what my main point will be ultimately, and that is WordPress gets typically more traffic organically on search engines than does Squarespace and even Wix. This is a study that was actually done by a very popular SEO tool or website called Ahrefs or Ahrefs. And they supposedly did a study of 300 or 3.6 million domains, and they compared Squarespace over WordPress. And with that study, and it was very recent, looks like they updated here in April of this past year, it looks like that they have vetted out many, many websites that exist out there. Now, you may ask the question, like, how many websites are actually on WordPress and how many are on Squarespace? Well, that's where I want to start, or wanted to start today's discussion. And that is, you can see, as I stop this little thing that's trying to get more of my privacy or get more of my private information. But anyway, you can see that 35% of the internet is actually powered by WordPress. So that means around, according to this statistic, about 455 million websites that are actually using that. Now, this is what this particular little post by who is hosting this website, which is a site that I think I've seen many times, which does a lot of hosting content and basically tries to link out to hosts. It's basically an affiliate site from what I know. So, frankly, can we believe this? Well, there's another infographic which I found on this really cool website called Visual Capitalist that has a lot of interesting visuals around data. And one, post that I kind of went in here to kind of check to see if WordPress would be profiled is a post that talked about the fastest growing companies using these specific technologies. And if you scroll down to when they examine WordPress sites, or rather content management systems, you can see that WordPress is far, far ahead of all other tools that exist out there. Now, Squarespace is down to 2.5%, and WordPress is at 58%. Maybe they'll throw in, Wix and a few other solutions, but you can see again, the majority of people out there, or the people that are, I would agree, or I would argue rather, are surviving, are using WordPress. So both this, and honestly, you can do another search, even if this is blowing it up to a higher number than it actually is, saying it's 455 million websites. Another source says 75. Regardless, there's a lot of people out there who are using WordPress. And as we found out, they're also pretty good at WordPress, or excuse me, organic SEO. So if that is the case, and I believe my past client now believes that, let's go on to his question. So what do you think of this theme? Well, one thing I would like to point out is when somebody asks you the question, like, what do you think? what might be better for the people that you're actually addressing that question to is specifically what are you asking? So do you mean, which I assume, my previous client is asking, do I think this is a good thing for him to use? Which, I can make that assumption. But more specifically, if he wants a particular answer, I would argue ask pointedly, perhaps, what specifically, about this particular platform, or sorry, this theme, would I necessarily talk about in a positive manner? Is it good for SEO? I mean, which I think he makes the assumption because I'm an SEO, or is it something that, frankly, could display his photography better? Because that's another element that we have to think about when we ask this question. Is this WordPress theme effective at helping him show his photography, or is it good at perhaps becoming visible via SEO, which I believe that's what he's asking. And that's what I will try to help him understand here tonight. But I won't be able to answer completely because, frankly, I haven't went through every single theme that exists out there. And so I just want to put the caveat out there. It's really hard to say one particular theme is going to be better than the other because, again, first off, what's the question? Is it SEO that you're talking about, or is it to show your portfolio? So, for example, I have another client who I'm happy to share because he's a great friend of mine. But he actually hosts his website in WordPress. Now, what theme is this? I can't tell you. But what I can tell you is that when you do look for, I believe, Hawaii wedding photographer, and you are looking for individuals out there, he's #1 here in the local pack, which, frankly, contributes to his ability to be there, I would argue. There are many different points that we can talk about here, but regardless, I've shown you that he's #1. So now that shows that WordPress is good. Now the question is which theme is good? Well, let's explore. So how would an SEO or maybe a Brandon Na tell you, which theme is best for SEO or which theme is best for perhaps your business? Well, the first thing that I do typically is I jump into Google Ads. So Google Ads tells me things in their keyword planner, like what is the most popular phrase? Because I don't make the assumption that there is a specific phrase that people are actually using. You can actually just type in a bunch of different phrases and then you'll see suggestions. So that's one way to see perhaps what people are searching for. Another way is using Google Trends, which we can explore later. But what I would like to just explain a really quick way to see what the majority are actually searching, and then maybe that's where we can start, is typing in maybe a couple seed keywords like best photography WordPress. Actually, when I did initially put this keyword in here, it failed to bring any results. As you can see here, best photography WordPress themes. Oh, I guess I spelled it wrong. That's the reason why it didn't show. So that's another thing that you can find here. But it suggested WordPress photography, which I punched in there. And as soon as I did that, I found that photography themes, which they're making the assumption is probably WordPress, but this very specifically is WordPress photography themes. And it's searched 1,000 times a month, so I thought that was a perfect starting phrase that we can look to see what might be good themes out there. So here, I type it in, and then you can see it's a very, very competitive phrase, to be honest. There's 4 different, services or websites out there who are trying to compete for this particular phrase. One happens to be actually the #1 organic result, ThemeForest, which is one of the most popular websites on the web that actually sell the themes on, that are WordPress related. There are 3 others, as you can see, or a competitor that's a competitor to WordPress. And so very, very, very competitive area. And so something that I would argue maybe we should look at. Well, anyway, I know what's in here. I know what ThemeForest basically will provide. And, frankly, let's click into it just as an example. Now, what's good about here, and this is why I would argue, or this is how I would examine it, is, maybe I'm looking at the reviews. So right now, looking at the reviews, so Mr. Photographer who asked me this question, I would argue, yes, your question that you asked, this is a great, theme, because it says 697 people have basically stated that it gets 4.5 stars. There's 12.6 thousand sales, etc. So it's not a bad theme from the outset when I look at it. Now, is it the best? Well, it says it's one of the best sellers, and according to these, it frankly looks like the best. But I haven't dived deep in here. Well, one thing that I look beyond that is maybe I will look for a result that isn't just talking about, how to sell it, which is what ThemeForest does, and then maybe some, basic clickbait, these 25 best WordPress themes, photographers, etc. But here is the first organic result that comes up. And so I click into this, and then I find, honestly, when I look at it, doesn't look that special. And frankly, even though it might have consistent amount of downloads, the main reason why this is showing up is because it's coming from Automatic. And so it has one of the best, website authorities. And so that's why this is going to show up. So I would tell you that this will not necessarily be a good gauge of quality, but here it does say there's 20 different ratings that give it around a 4.5 stars out of 5. So maybe it's not that bad. So hard to say. But maybe I'd click into this to see if there's any other potential themes that are related. Maybe I would type in photography, etc., and then see if there's other options and maybe look for perhaps a different theme. So that's how I approach it there. Now, back to the question again, like, is that WordPress theme a good one? Well, according to, Themes Forest, it seems to be. So at this point, I would say yes. But the next thing I would probably do to really vet this out is to see if other, even though there's clickbaits type of sites or content that's showing up, at least it gives you some reference and you can read through to see if whether or not these people are actually just putting this content here so that they can get lots and lots of organic traffic. I do know that the first result that comes up and saying number one, Divi is actually the best WordPress theme. It is the de facto theme that I know that a lot of developers love. It's more like a framework, I would argue, but it is a theme, and actually, sorry, not a framework per se, but an ultimate page builder, which makes it, to some people, to a certain degree, think it's one of the best. I know personally with the only web developer or the main web developer that I refer business to. Now I actually have a couple others, frankly, but the main one that I refer to locally here in Seattle, he loves Divi, and he actually built our site in Divi, and so this makes a lot of sense. So maybe this is a decent list of recommendations. Now, would I automatically assume that number one is the best and then basically go from there? Well, maybe I'd do a little bit more research, but to be honest, there's a lot, and so I don't know how much time and I want to spend on this honestly to see which one's the best. But I'd probably look through to see which ones look like something that I would want to display. Now, I went into the second organic, basically clickbait form of content, and what I found here is that this piece was a little bit different. It seemed like they put a little bit more effort into this, frankly, and interesting enough, this post, it looks like maybe even was published as of yesterday. So having it be literally coming up today, a day before, doesn't have that long history and showing up this well. I think there's a couple of reasons. One is there is a lot of text, but when you read through it, I think maybe there's some, higher quality content that actually very specifically identifies why each of these themes are very strong. Frankly, I like the layout, and I also like the way that this person or this website, frankly, evaluates these. So I would actually go through this and maybe take this a little bit more seriously. But I might actually take these different themes, and they're actually interesting in linking into Themes Forest, and then I would look at maybe some of the ratings and play around to see what kind of support each of these different themes had as well. So there's a few different things that I would do. Again, ratings, just like my friend and past client, looked at, but also perhaps I would look for support information or any other details that perhaps might help me understand whether or not this theme would be appropriate. So those are the things that I wanted to share here today with this WordPress evaluation of that question of whether or not that specific theme was good or not, called photography within Themes Forest. or whether or not we could find another reference. And I would argue clicking through to some of these other, sources, I would say that frankly, this third form of clickbait, or literally this third, evaluation of different photography websites is good as well. Frankly, what I might do is I might even open up a Google sheet or a spreadsheet and start doing, analysis that identifies who thinks they're the best, like which ones show up the most. Frankly, they might just pull from themes for us, but I might literally put Oshine photography theme in one of the columns and then see how many times it's mentioned. Because you can also see within the SERP, the search engine results page, there's many forms of clickbait. So we have 46 best photography themes, WordPress. We also have just themes as well, flow themes, a bunch of different sources that will have some opinions about what photography themes should be used. But frankly, again, Mr. Photography Friend, I would say if you don't want to spend a lot of time and you want to just literally get right to it, I would say go for it because it has really, really good ratings. I would check out, like I said, the support behind it. I would read a little bit more behind it. I've never used it, honestly, so I can't say it will be the best, but it does look like it has a lot of different options. Again, maybe look for the themes or options that perhaps would relate to how you would like to display your website. Because what I do know is I think your website doesn't look like this. What I believe you would want is something more along the lines of maybe something like this from what that little image, yeah, so you can see multiple images. So, but I do want to mention that frankly, do note that sometimes these look very, very nice in themes for us, but then to customize it and get it to the actual look and feel that they show is not always easy. So do note that, and once you do, buy it, if you do end up buying it, sometimes you need some help actually customizing it, and that's kind of the painful part, which WordPress developers are really good at. But I would say it's not a bad choice.